Laura Farris.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I just wanted to start by saying I think to many people who are watching this debate, it will be quite extraordinary that we even need to have it. Extraordinary, actually, to think that there is a market for bringing home body parts of animals, or that it is still considered a sport, or that it is still considered desirable or something to be proud of in certain quarters of this country. So I want to start by paying tribute to my honourable friend, the member for Crawley, for bringing this debate. I think it's been widely supported across the House, and of course it aligns with our manifesto commitment, so it's very moving to support him and to, I hope, get this over the line this afternoon. Really, I just wanted to talk about two elements. First, dovetailing with what he said in his opening remarks about the environmental aspect. It is absolutely shocking to think that the elephant population has depleted in number by, I think, very significantly in the last 50 years, and that there is a specific targeting of elephants with the larger tusks, with the evolutionary impacts that has had, and to what he described in his opening remarks about the elephants with smaller tusks who are less able to adapt to their natural habitats, with ongoing consequences. Also for lions, that their population has collapsed by 93% in the wild in the last 50 years, just over the course, a bit more than the course of my lifetime. We know that climate change is impacting upon these habitats anyway, and if we're serious about the preservation of wildlife, and particularly endangered species, then I think this is a really pernicious element that we need to do something about. I respect, of course, that this bill in itself doesn't deal with trophy hunting per se, but it does say something about who we as a society are and what we think about this, and I wanted to make 2 points. First of all, the way the British public view hunting has changed actually since fox hunting was abolished, and I think a lot of people in this country have strong views on that. In relation to trophy hunting specifically, it's not just about animal hunting, it's also about viewing them as chattels and their body parts as something that is a sort of show of status or virility. And I think the point was made, he's not in his place anymore, by the Honourable Member for Worley, that actually in some ways it is an adjunct of those who are most committed to the NRA and to the Second Amendment to the United States. And it has, like so many slightly odd American habits, now found its way here and is kind of replicated in certain quarters. I didn't recognise the speech that was made by North Hereford, the member for North Hereford. I'm sorry, Madam Deputy Speaker, I couldn't immediately remember the member's constituency. I didn't recognise the characterisation of trophy hunting as somehow having or the criticism of trophy hunting as somehow being racist or patronising to certain communities. I don't think that's a true characterisation. I regret the fact he's not in his place actually to hear me say this, but I think what does happen in certain parts of Africa is that where there is a demand to use the wildlife in a certain way, sometimes poverty is such that a market will sort of grow up. And frankly, if the market was to protect certain areas of landscape, this is very much the case in the Masai Mara, the local community will complement that. So I don't think we should take advantage or try to say that somehow there's a local collusion or appetite in trophy hunting that exists naturally. It doesn't. It's not something I've ever seen in Africa at all. I just didn't recognise its characterisation. And the final point I wanted to make, and I think it is really important to say that this is the latest in a package of animal welfare actions that the government has taken. And sometimes a piece of legislation on its own doesn't tell a particularly powerful story. But when you take into consideration the Animal Welfare Sentencing Act, which was mentioned, that was passed by the House last year, the Sentience Act, which was a really important act in this Parliament about whether or not, or was it the previous Parliament actually, I think? Anyway, about whether animals are sentient beings, and also the Animal Welfare Kept Animals Bill, which is sort of beginning its pathway through Parliament. It's true that parliamentarians from across the House have been looking carefully at animal welfare, and that animal welfare will sort of be in a completely different position by the time this Parliament comes to an end than it would have been at the start. And I think that's something that many of our constituents would feel is important and fairly reflects their attitudes and their values and their view of animals. There are lots of other aspects I could mention: the mandatory microchipping of dogs, banning the use of battery cages for laying hens. There's a number of others like this, but I think we've looked differently at domestic animals, and we've also looked differently at farmed animals, and that's something that we should feel proud of. So to conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, I am very supportive of this bill, and it really is an honour actually to speak in it this afternoon, and I'm looking forward to seeing it conclude shortly.